joining us is Rebecca Grant, Vice President of the Lexington Institute and National Security Analyst. So good afternoon to you, Dr. Grant. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll start with the most current. President Trump brokered an initial peace deal between Israel and Hamas. He's meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister today, and they're looking on to move to the next phase of the plan. What is your review of Trump's handling of the Gaza conflict?
When they announced on October 8th that Israel and Hamas had agreed to a ceasefire and the living hostages and remains would be coming out, it was amazing. And I think something only President Trump could have pulled off. Yes, he really benefited from military pressure by Israel. Of course, the B-2 strikes in Operation Midnight Hammer, crushing Iran's nuclear facilities. But it was nonetheless a masterful negotiation and the product of just intense work and refusal to give up. Okay. That said, a lot of good has now taken place in Gaza, more humanitarian aid going in, but we need to get to the next phase, a true international stabilization force, and then eventually a rebuilding of Gaza. That's taken some time, and as you can see from the meeting with Netanyahu and Trump has to kind of stay in there and keep the pressure on all the players to keep the Gaza plan moving forward.
And just to build on that, Dr. Grant, it's not just this one, right? Far from it. President Trump has brokered multiple peace deals and ceasefires, including between Armenia and Azerbaijan, DRC, and Rwanda, Israel, and Iran. So what are your comments on this? How does this compare to past presidents' efforts?
An incredible flurry of effort. And don't forget India and Pakistan during their flare-up. And one common element here, especially with India and Pakistan, is Trump simply threatens to change the tariffs if the warring sides won't agree. And I think that and his personal stake in all this has been really key to getting these agreements. You know, in the case of India, Pakistan, that was clearly calmed tensions. Armenia and Azerbaijan, wow, you know, we've seen how far back that conflict goes and didn't think that would maybe ever happen. Same thing with the DRC. So some tremendous achievements because Trump was willing to use both the strategic leadership of the U.S. and some of that economic power and willing to put it on the line himself and insist on getting results. So all of these are tremendous accomplishments that do make the world a safer place.
So in your view, Dr. Grant, do you think his tariff policy has played an outsized role during this administration?
Oh, absolutely. You know, he is so comfortable using the tariff weapon. I think more comfortable than a lot of us are. But we've all really learned, too, that even some of our best friends and allies had some pretty steep tariffs and that were unfair to the U.S. So he's done a good job of unmasking that and of showing that the U.S. can use economic policy leverage and get positive results. That's something that really is quite unique to Trump, and he has used it over and over again. One of the positive examples, of course, being undergirding that strong relationship with South Korea and with Japan and getting them to take their alliance, which was started under the Biden years, really to the next level as they oppose China and, of course, North Korea.
And I just want to stay on this topic of ending wars a little bit longer, Dr. Grant. Well, what do you think about Trump's efforts in regards to the Russia-Ukraine war? You know, he thought that it would be one of his easier ones, he said, but it turned out not to be so exactly. He said today, however, peace is closer than ever. What do you think?
He's still optimistic. I tell you, he is not going to stop until he gets that done. I believe he thought that coming into office back in January, he could put together an attractive package for Putin of economic incentives, sanctions relief, investment deals, things that would make Putin or any reasonable person agree to end the war. But Putin has a taste for war. He likes this war, and it is him and him alone, Putin alone, his idea of a revived imperial Russia that is keeping this madness going. So I applaud President Trump for really sticking with it. It does sound to me, especially as we are not hearing too many details about the 20-point plan, I think that says there are very intensive behind-the-scenes negotiations. His strategy is to try what worked for Gaza, that is keeping Witkoff, Kushner, Secretary Rubio, and others at the negotiating table until they pound out a deal. And I must say, President Zelensky has been quite agreeable in recent months, also really trying to get that ceasefire done.
Okay, so another big thing this year, and it's still current, the Trump administration escalating pressure on Venezuela, with naval blockade on sanctioned oil, strikes on alleged drug boats. And, President Trump said recently in an interview on Friday with WABC Radio in New York that the U.S. knocked out a Venezuelan facility. So this could be the first land attack, actually, on a facility. Your thoughts on the president's approach to Latin America this year?
Yes, on that attack, we know that Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, had briefed a target set several weeks ago now. It sounds to me like this might have been a maritime connected, a lightering facility, something there that's supporting the loading of the drug boats. And just to stay tactical for a moment, we do have incredible, exquisite maritime surveillance, and they know exactly which boats they're hitting and why. But the big change, of course, is making the Western Hemisphere a top priority for the U.S. And the administration has carefully laid out its case that several of the Venezuelan-sponsored cartels are narco-terrorists and an imminent invasion threat. That's a pretty big change in U.S. foreign policy, but it's from that basis that President Trump is using his authority as commander-in-chief to interdict the drug boats. The oil tankers, some of those have been on the sanctions list for a pretty long time, and some of them have a very, very bad history of running oil for Venezuela and for others. And of course, who buys it? That's China. So the final piece in this hemisphere is Trump wants to diminish China's influence in Central and South America so that it's the U.S. that is the leader in our own hemisphere.
Okay, Dr. Grant, I just want to end with this. There's so much that's happened on the foreign policy front, but we've seen big moves from the Trump administration on immigration as well. So some developments being the pause on all immigration applications, like requests for green cards from 19 countries, pausing asylum decisions, carrying out expansive deportation operations domestically. In your view, how have this administration's policies impacted U.S. national security on the immigration front?
It's a net positive. They need to stop and rethink some of the policies. The asylum program was never meant to expand in the way that it has. It had a very narrow focus originally. So I want to see Trump's team go in and really think about what we want to do about asylum claims and about priorities for immigration in this country. Note also, he's really dropped the crossings at the southern border and all encounters nationwide. So I'd say he gets an A on immigration policy, and we'll see what his new set of rules look like in 2026.
Yep, we'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that. Thank you so much for speaking with us today, Dr. Grant. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Storms are affecting tens of millions of people. Many post-holiday travelers are facing weather delays